21. We have a short agenda tonight, so we should be able to whip through this pretty quickly, I think. I'm not planning on any big speeches myself, so we'll see. First item is approval of the minutes from our meeting of August 3rd. Do I have a motion to approve? I have one from Watson. Do I have a second? I have a second from McElhenney. Any concerns or questions regarding? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And none are. Thank you. Item number 2, discussion and possible action on the draft RFP for West Side Battery Site, 415 South First Avenue. Director Brodick, are you taking this one?
Sure, yes. This is my first time with this microphone and first time up here, so please excuse all fumbling.
Yeah. It picks up pretty well. You don't have to get really
Great.
close or anything.
Okay. So, yeah, we had some interested kind of nibbles and parties interested in this site, so I think it's a good time to re-release this RFP. I will make a note, almost everything is very similar to the former RFPs that have been released for this site. I did update the elements of the criteria for review, adding on the last point is a new point, and I reallocated some actual points from prior drafts to include that the proposal furthers one or more of the strategic goals, including innovative companies, a talented workforce, and/or placemaking, and that was based off of a Greater Wausau Region Economic Development strategic plan. So I think that to me makes sense as an addition, but and I would like to release this tomorrow if this is approved by the committee.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from the, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree. I think this RFP is good. It's open enough that it allows people some creativity with their ideas. And obviously adding placemaking and innovation and talented workforce, all things that we want, certainly makes sense. So how long would we want to keep the RFP open? Do we have an idea? You want to go a couple months or?
So I have a proposed date of closing in 3 weeks on here. That is obviously open to discussion. It's just kind of what I've heard from, as I've been talking to people, that this is a timeline that makes sense. I was concerned about I didn't really know what we should be doing for a timeline on that, but 3 weeks is what I've heard is a decent timeline, but we can obviously talk about that.
I wouldn't think less than that,
Right.
Just to have time to get it out there and have people get their responses together. Normally we see 3 to 6-ish a month or so. Would you want us then to consider whatever proposals come in at our next meeting?
Yes, the proposed initial review of proposals is September 30th, the day after proposals would be due. And I believe our next meeting is October, it's like the
7th or 8th or something like, yeah.
Yeah, it's very early October. It might even be.
The 5th.
Okay, yeah,
The
5th.
Okay.
So that would give enough time, I think, to review in time for the next meeting.
Sure.
My one concern about the 3-week timeline is, if this were the first time that a potential developer was aware of the property, it might take them a while to kind of pull together their thoughts, their business plan, their, what they, possible, financing, and just things like that they might want to explore before responding. So I don't know if there's any way we can stretch it as close as possible to our meeting. That would be fine. I'd also be open to a special meeting if everybody on the committee was okay with it to, a week later come in for one agenda item, something like that. So any thoughts from the committee on that? Alder Killian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I agree with that sentiment, and I think if we could lengthen the time frame of the RFP. I know historically sometimes internally or the public ask, why didn't we get more responses to an RFP? And there are probably many variables, but I think that time frame can sometimes be one of them. So I think I would prefer if we could lengthen that out, and I would certainly be open to a special meeting if that were necessary. I'd just rather see kind of a more robust time frame on the RFP.
What would you think might be sufficient? without, going, forever.
Sure. Even 6 weeks, I'd feel more comfortable with.
Okay, I tend to agree with you on that. I'd like to see, staff, contacting local media to maybe get, like some coverage on it, that sort of thing, maybe do a feature, so, sure, Alder Watson.
All right, so I have two things, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, when RFPs are distributed to potential contractors, do they usually get it from a system? Like, how are they made aware of it? And then lengthening the time, would it like sort of go down on the queue and not have as much fresh views?
That's a good question, and I think Brad can help answer some of that as I'm getting into the role and just kind of figuring that out. I know that we post it on the city's website, and then we publish it in the newspaper as well. And so those are like the very base level ways that we get it out, but there are other ways. I mean, we just talked about contacting local media, which is something that we can definitely do. Brad, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure, thanks. There isn't a 100%, formula that we follow. Sometimes it depends on what type of project we're looking for. If it's commercial, we'll send it to commercial developers, residential to residential developers. We try to get it out to the local people that we think are interested in it, so that may vary depending on the project and the property. So, in this case, we'll send it out to people who have contacted us. We have had some interest, so we'll make sure that they get a copy of it. And then basically the local development community. Again, there isn't necessarily a specified list that we have, but we'll try to hand distribute it as much as we can, and then other sources through the media, website, things like that. So
Because this particular property lends itself to not only, developers, but, entrepreneurs, just somebody that has an idea. And, getting it out into, print and electronic media, I think would be the way we'd have to reach those people, because we might not know who they are. So, Alder Watson.
So I guess as a sub thing to this, just because it's put out, now, is there a way to re-up it so it sort of freshens it, like re-contact the media to have it published in the newspaper again after 3 weeks, so that, we maximize the use of the 6? Because like if it's in the newspaper, tomorrow or something.
Yeah, I think you can easily do a media re-release of saying, hey, it's coming due. And that's also something that the team and I can work together on figuring out what are some other options. And obviously, Brad, if you have anything off the top of your head, feel free to say, but otherwise we can.
Because if you could just put a tickler in and say, hey, and 2 weeks before the thing's due, and if we extend it to the 6 weeks, just re-up and republicize so we can get some more people. I guess my second question is too, with the, I think it's the second bullet point, would you give priority to contractors that would want both lots instead of just one or the other with that one?
I think we would, because they're adjoining, and the access is basically through, I think there's only one lot that has street access. So, yeah, it would, and honestly, the parcels are really small. So I think it'd be really difficult to get a gateway-type development on one of those lots. I think you'd have to combine.
But you sort of want to just leave it open for either or? Because it looked like they could bid for either, right?
I
thought I
think
saw
so. Can you, which point exactly are you?
It would be the proposal maximizes the use of the site and provides, but I thought I saw earlier somewhere about how you could get one or both lots, like in your proposal.
Oh, I think that's, let's see.
I saw it.
Well, the first paragraph of the RFP states that we're pleased to release the request for proposals for the redevelopment of the former West Side Battery .22 acre and LNS printing .57 acre parcels. So I guess the way that I interpret that is that it would be those parcels are looked at together in the RFP.
So I think it's on page 2.
Okay.
In the second paragraph, it said, seeks creative proposals which can utilize either one or both.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see.
I think we should probably
Yeah.
strike that.
No, I think that's a good call. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. do you feel more comfortable maybe with 5 weeks instead of 6?
I was going to say, my only hesitation with 6 weeks is if we have a developer that needs to have something kind of on their books for different tax credit purposes by the end of the year, I want to make sure that they, because that would then put us into review in November. So if there's, potential to have a special meeting in October, that might be the optimal way to go.
Okay, well, if we can look for meeting again in, like just about the middle of the month, whatever date, brings us up to that. Alder Killian, are you amenable to more of a 5-week timeframe?
Yes, that sounds good, and I do have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there any way to elaborate on any of the interest, kind of the nature of the interest that we've seen to date?
I mean, it's both been commercial and residential. I think, I don't know exactly, I'm still learning kind of how much I can, elaborate on all of that. One is a known developer. At least one other we don't really know, I don't think that much about, so, yeah. But potentially promising. I don't know if that helps much.
Okay.
It's helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've maybe at the point where I would entertain a motion on this. So do you want to introduce this, Alder Killian, as an amendment to the draft or whatever, that you would move to approve the draft with the edit that we talked about and the 5-week timeframe?
Yes, I will introduce that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Do I have a second? I have a second from Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, just as a clarification, when would the second meeting be in October? Do we usually have a standing date that we have a second econ development?
Our next meeting would be on the 5th, right? And so I'm talking maybe instead somewhere around the 12th or something like that, or later in the week. Sometimes we have a Thursday evening as our fallback, so that would be like the 14th, or, 14th.
That sounds great. So
Okay.
then I should, so if that's the date of the meeting, just to clarify, the submission date should be probably about a week before that, so that we have time to review and put it in
However
the
much time
packet?
you need to review, just subtract that from,
Okay,
leave that up to you.
okay, great.
The meeting date, if you're doing the third Thursday, is the 21st of October.
Okay. All right. Next item, discussion and possible action on approving contracting with Aplomb PR to extend the campaign through February 2022. You'll remember that we approved an extension through at the end of this month, I think it was, to give Director Brodeck time to sort of look at what she might envision and what have you. So here we are now, looking at it again. So, Director Brodeck.
Great, thank you. And I'm just passing out some information that pertains to the contract. So if you wouldn't mind passing that down to the alders. So, yes, the contract with Aplomb currently runs through, actually ran through yesterday, with, as you stated exactly, the idea of giving me some time to understand what's, kind of the lay of the land. So I produced a staff memo that you see up on the screen, basically asking for an extension of a similar contract with a little bit more meat to it, a little bit more content from Aplomb through February 2022. The idea being that, I'm, just under a month into the job right now, and we are currently hiring an economic development manager. We have second interviews this upcoming Monday. And what I would really like to do, because our department is tasked heavily with promotions and communication and marketing, is have a full team together to be able to then assess what we want to do as a comprehensive marketing plan. And I anticipate that person, the new economic development manager, coming on board in mid to late October. I know things get really hectic in November and December. So basically, the hope is that And the plan is that we can get the team together through those months into January when things are a little bit less hectic with holidays and everything, and then come to economic development in February of 2022 with a more robust and comprehensive marketing plan that really gives us time to take everything into account. So this is more than a stopgap because we do have a plan of producing 2 new Wausau stories, but it's less than a full-blown contract that we would go out for RFP. It makes sense to keep a plum on because Elizabeth Knight and her team has been doing all of this for basically since I think 2017. So they have all of the institutional knowledge. We don't need to retrain. They know exactly what they're doing. And then so that's kind of the content of the memo. The information I passed out has to do with the contract. Elizabeth Knight from a Plum reviewed the contract and had some changes proposed. They're very minor, nothing material. But I just wanted to, I think it was easiest to just print it out and have it, in front of you to see. So basically relating to the terms of the payment that she does subcontract and, for images, all things that makes total sense to continue with. But I just wanted to make sure that all of you were aware and that would be approved in the new contract.
Thank you. I noticed on the highlighted portion here, the question about having somebody have access to where they could basically have admin duties. I mean, I think in our meeting, the main concern was that I, as an elected official, probably shouldn't, or other elected officials probably shouldn't, but I don't think we had discussion that staff shouldn't. I think it's perfectly fine. It's a city vehicle, and staff, I think, then should have a say in that. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Alder Rasmussen.
We did talk about that, and I think it was the staff that we wanted to have access to make sure they were in control of the posting and the content, but then to leave us as alders out of that mix, because that would draw us into an uncomfortable position in terms of content and posting. So it was kind of the opposite, that, not us, but definitely you and your team. So.
And if I recall correctly, that was the recommendation of HR, which is why I brought it up.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense. I mean, the staff should be in control of all the postings, and then obviously are familiar with the city's social media policy and how to archive the stuff and the content rules, and stuff like that have been designed. So I think that's certainly appropriate.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? Alder Killian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question, and I see you brought up the concern about the serial contracting in the memo, which we had talked about. Ms. Jacobson had just brought that matter up to us, but thought that it was fine. Really, she couldn't inject more at the time. So with the city legal, that's fine. There's no limit on the kind of the increments or the amount of time we can do that. Is that correct?
I believe that's my understanding. I know if we had Nate can speak to that. I know that if we had a contract of over 25,000, we would have to go to RFP. But with sole source, I forget exactly what the term is, but with sole source contracting, it essentially is left to the department head and whether there's a justifiable reason. So, but
Yeah, exactly. And because we've been doing this since 2018, and we've spent approximately, including what we just ended with yesterday, up to $39,500 since they've kind of been our social media provider, I should say. That's why it's okay under the sole source. And then going forward, then I guess we just acknowledge that and then go towards just the February 1st, 2022 contract that's in your packet. So.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah.
And foreseeably, at that time, we would maybe be talking about an RFP.
yes, that's the idea.
Okay. Do I have a motion from the committee on this item?
So moved.
I have a motion from Rasmussen. Do I have a second? Going once, going twice. A second, please, from Watson. Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? And all in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And none are. Thank you. Next item is adjournment. I would welcome a motion to adjourn. I have one from Watson. I have a second from Killian. All in favor? Good night.
Aye.